What's your biggest I effed up moment? I was a bank teller working drive-thru, and I had a fat stack of cash in an envelope, roughly $3,000, that I'd set aside because I needed my manager to take it to the vault, because I was over the max amount allowed to keep in the drawer at any time. I'm just going through the motions, and some guy was doing a cash withdrawal, and while I was on autopilot, I sent back his tube with the envelope containing $3,000 instead of the few hundred he was withdrawing. Worst part was, I didn't realize this until about 15 minutes and 10 or so transactions later. I immediately called my manager and just said, I screwed up big time. I couldn't even remember which account it was on, so I had no idea who to call or who he was. He could have kept that money and we would have never known. Luckily, he was a good Samaritan and came back into the branch and asked for the manager, saying, I believe there was a mistake. I was given way too much money, but I noticed it wasn't taken out of my accounts. I don't want your teller fired over this. The issue was resolved in under an hour, and I'm forever thankful that guy was a good person and came back to return the money. You know what a good bloke, because there's a high chance that if he didn't come back, OP may well have been fired. Legend. I read a manifest wrong and pumped the wrong chemical down an oil well and literally ruined a brand new well worth about $4 million. They had to abandon it. Well then, on the day I was moving to Jersey from VA, I had a date in VA. I was planning on driving straight to NJ after the date. I ate something bad during dinner and my stomach started acting up. But the date was going well and I didn't want to cut it short and thought I could hold it until the date was over. Right after it ended, I got into my car and drove to the nearest restaurant to use the bathroom. But nature prevailed and I couldn't hold it. I literally pooped my pants. It was so bad, I couldn't even get out of my car. So I drove with poop in my pants from VA to NJ. I was worried that I might get pulled over. I got to my apartment building at 3 a.m. in the morning, walked up 3 flights of stairs to make less noise. Then I got rid of my clothes and took a shower. So the damage. I had to buy tools and throw away the driver's side car seat. Cost me $2,000. I had it detailed 4 times in 2 months and finally decided to get rid of the car to get rid of the trauma. P.S. I married her, but she doesn't know the story. Nobody close to me knows. I will take this to my grave. So it was worth it then. Wow. For me, I've not got a lot of effed up moments yet, but me and my brother sprinted on a pedestrian crossing and got hit by a car about 7 years ago. I realized that I'd effed up when I noticed I was flying through the air. Not a lot of effed up moments apart from getting hit by a car. My ex left her panties at my house a few months before I started dating my current girlfriend. And when I found them, I thought they were my currents. Needless to say, when I handed her the panties like, hey, you left these, with a smile on my face, and she told me they weren't hers, my heart dropped like an anvil. She was definitely angry for a few days, but we're fine now. That sucks. She thought you were doing a good thing. Oh no. In my 20s, while working at Home Depot, I walked by an aisle full of pallets of doors. As soon as I casually walked by, all of the doors came crashing down. Pallets and all. No one knows how it happened, but I'm pretty sure I was the one that put the pallets there a few days prior. The damages were in the thousands. Now luckily no one was hurt, but I still think about all of the booby traps I left in that place. Doctor here. The first surgery I scrubbed into in my surgery clerkship in medical school, I accidentally stabbed the patient's liver with a tool called a trocar. Just for some background, in laparoscopic surgery, typically 3 small incisions are made and surgical tools and a camera, a laparoscope, are inserted in order to perform the surgery. After making the initial incision, a trocar is placed into the incision to widen it and facilitate the passage of tools. Basically, I misjudged how much force I would need to push the trocar through, and very slightly nicked the patient's liver. I immediately began to sweat and fog up my eye protection, thinking I just killed the patient. Luckily, the injury was very minor and I didn't hit any major blood vessels. The surgeon cauterized the area that I hit to stop some minor bleeding, and it was fine. After we saw the patient, a few weeks after taking out her gallbladder, she was perfectly fine and recovering well. Our very old blender started smoking when I was using it, so I frantically unplugged it at the wall and started taking it apart. It was when I heard the whirring and felt the blade go through my fingertip that I realized in my panic I'd instead unplugged the toaster from the socket next to it. Oh my god. When I was in 7th grade, my parents woke me up from bed and took me to the guest room, where they proceeded to show me what history on the computer was. So in other words, probably the worst night of your life. Wow. I was working a facilities job in my early 20s and was a heavy smoker at the time. I worked for a wealthy company and had a no smoking rule, so every time I needed a cigarette, I had to hide behind the building to smoke. Due to a recent change in furniture, we were left with lots of cardboard and plastic wrap, so the DO ordered a rollaway dumpster to the site. This rollaway dumpster happened to be put around the corner of where I smoked. One night I was smoking and got a call to go do a fix on a machine. So I put my cigarette out before finishing it with the intent to come back later. The cigarette broke in half while I was doing so, and in frustration, I tossed it into the dumpster. I do the fix on the machine and go back to the shop office to sit down. 5 minutes go by and one of the other facilities guys comes running in and tells me there's a fire. I run to a fire extinguisher and run outside to see there's a huge fire in the dumpster. So me and 3 other people jump in the dumpster to attempt to put it out. After 2 long minutes, I look down and see flames coming from underneath the cardboard I'm standing on and decide to call it time and dial 911. The flames erupted 9 to 10 feet out of the dumpster when the fire department arrived, and it took them nearly half an hour to put it out. We were all examined afterwards, and the fire department recommended we all go to the hospital immediately due to smoke inhalation. My cigarette sent 3 people to the hospital, and a security camera above the dumpster saw the whole thing. I was fired and banned from the place I worked. In the end, I was very fortunate nothing was damaged and nobody was seriously injured. Definitely was an I screwed up moment. I've been a scuba diver for 22 years and have over 3,000 dives under my belt. I've seen only a couple of major dive accidents. One was a heart attack, the guy lived and is doing okay, but the other happened to me and my 2 buddies. I was in the Komodo Islands, and it was a drift dive, a dive where the current is so strong you make yourself neutrally buoyant and go with the current and relax. We were diving nitrox, a mixture of oxygen and nitrogen with a higher concentration of oxygen than regular air. I had a mixture that was 36% oxygen, and my buddies were within 0.5% of my oxygen content. This is important because under pressure, oxygen becomes toxic. For recreational divers, there's a depth limit of 40 meters, 130 feet. Now this is to make sure that nobody gets oxygen toxicity, which normally would set in around 300 plus feet or 90 plus meters. However, with a higher oxygen content, the safe level becomes shallower. We had a 4th buddy that was a part of our guys group. She was a lady that spoke little English and was very aloof. Our tour guide goes into the water and we follow him. Well, almost all of us. The lady decided she wanted to go her own way. The guide chases after her. The current is so strong, we have to climb horizontally across the reef using reef hooks, and it was harder than climbing up a mountain. As we're doing this, my buddy's clip breaks. My other buddy and I unhook our clips and go after our friend. As we drift, we notice another group from our boat, so we join them. The dive is going smoothly until I noticed my buddy is trying to take a picture of something and is facing down, staring at the ground. I go check on him and realize that he has nitrogen narcosis. Basically, it makes you feel intoxicated and causes disorientation and other effects. He was severely disoriented. I grab onto him as the tour guide comes over to help. Out of nowhere, the ocean floor starts dropping out from underneath us. I start pulling us towards the rest of the group we had joined. I then noticed that all of our bubbles are going down. I thought it was one of the most amazing and beautiful things I've ever seen. Until a split second later, I realized we were caught in a down current. As the ocean floor descends and there is a current, the water will follow gravity, being pulled deeper, causing the water to have a current that drags you deeper. I quickly check my depth and realize I'm at 130 feet and sinking quickly. I grab my 2 buddies by the tank valve and kick as hard and fast as I could. I end up getting us all up to the surface. After a few minutes, I notice that we are alone. I blow my whistle and hear a response, so I swim towards it, towing my 2 buddies. Eventually, I reunite with the group. However, because we all got caught in the down current and the water was moving so fast, we ended up more than a mile from the island where we'd been diving. We were still drifting away. We throw up our marker buoys and start making plans to go to one of the other islands we were drifting past, depending on how long we'd be drifting for. I told the group to wave to the boys in distress, but to conserve our air for emergencies and to keep our lights off until nighttime if it came to that. Luckily, another boat saw us in distress and rescued us. I put us all on decompression illness watch, and we're done diving for at least 24 hours to monitor our symptoms, making sure we don't have a fun stay in a hyperbaric chamber. We were all okay, and nobody had any lasting physical symptoms. A couple of people did have PTSD though, which is understandable given how close we came to dying that day. I was in high school, and after a football game, had some friends come over for a fire. We couldn't get the wood lit, so someone had the bright idea of getting out the gasoline. As I pour some gas onto the barely lit fire, the fire travels up the stream of gas into the gas can. I go into a full-blown panic as I hold this now flamethrower that may or may not explode in my hand. So I had the genius idea of tossing the gas can into my pool that was nearby. Little did I know that gas floats on water. So now my pool looks like the gates of hell. And next thing I know, the liner is burnt to a crisp and water goes everywhere. My friends look at me amazed that I caught water on fire. Everyone ended up leaving, and I went and got laid one last time before my mum murdered me. Well, at least you got that in. So there we go, guys. Those are the internet's best answers to the question, what is your biggest I effed up moment? I want to hear your comments now down below. If you've got something that springs to mind, please do comment it. And then also go down and look through the comments, as I'm sure you've been doing throughout this video, and like some of the funny ones. Because I reckon you lot have got some very original stuff to say. I want to hear it. Now for me, a moment that springs to mind very quickly is when I accidentally let my snake, Marty, go down the back of a sink. We nearly lost him and he almost definitely would have died. So yeah, that was a bit of an F up. Had to pull him as hard as I could as he was trying to go down the back of a sink. Like 3/4 of his body was already down there. And yeah, me and my mum were holding on to him for dear life, pulling very hard. Snakes are strong, by the way, if you didn't know. And after like a bit of a war, it would have been at least 2-3 minutes of pulling as hard as we can, him pulling as hard as he could. He came out, eventually gave up, and thankfully he's still alive today in his vivarium, safe and not down somewhere underneath our house. Yeah, that probably was it for me. I don't know. Anyway, guys, that is going to do it for this one. Really hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you did, comment down below. I loved it. That will let me know that you did as well. Yeah, drop it a like, comment your thoughts and your answer to the question. Click on some more videos on the screen right here and subscribe for daily Reddit content. See you all tomorrow with a brand new one.